wear a cape or anything into work, but you do need to know that. All right, there we are. If it is Friday at 1:30, we're talking about the Braves and baseball in general with Josh Brown of Knockahoma Nation and so much stuff with the Atlanta Braves. Okay, baseball draft took place, and guess what? The big story, not who the Braves drafted, but the two big free agents, Craig Kimbrell, he signs with the Cubs. Oh, geez, Braves could have had him for the bullpen. Wait a minute. Dallas Keuchel signs with the Atlanta Braves. 1 year. He'll be in Gwinnett. He's got to pass the physical, all of that. Your thoughts on this signing, Josh Brown?
I think it's huge for the Atlanta Braves. In a lot of ways, Keuchel is the same pitcher as Julio Teheran, and we've talked about it before. If you look at their careers, very similar, almost the same ERA, almost same innings pitched, very similar whip. In fact, Teheran's got a lower whip. Their strikeout to walk ratio is virtually the same. But what makes Keuchel stand out is his experience, right? He's a World Series champion. He's won the Cy Young. And so he's got all these things that Teheran has in a lot of ways, but he has performed on the biggest stage there is. And so it's fantastic for the Braves. It's very interesting to see a guy like this sign so late in the year because this never happened. But we're living in a weird Scott Boras era right now, right?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see when he starts. I'm assuming he's going to start in Gwinnett, and maybe he makes 2 or 3 starts and then he's called up. But I think it says to the fan base that, hey, we're serious. We're in it to win it. We're not just messing around. And it says to the players and the young pitching staff, step up your game. We're in it to win it. There's no free passes. I think the Braves still need to answer some bullpen issues. But as far as their rotation, I really think that with a guy like Keuchel, Teheran, Soroka, Fried, you've got it. I think Gossman's probably on his way out, but I think the rotation right now is very formidable.
And, I hear you. I mean, when you can pick up pick up the staff, you start thinking about, well, how many more victories is this going to mean for the Atlanta Braves? Now, this week, I mean, the Braves were 3-3, and to tell you the truth, I didn't, maybe that isn't good enough against the Tigers and the Pirates. You can make that argument, I suppose, but I thought that they improved their team with Keuchel. Whereas the Phillies, and okay, maybe they pick up Jay Bruce, but they lose Andrew McCutchen for the entire season. The only likable player they have, I guess. But yeah, and now the Braves, they're down here, 2 out. Okay, that's a game and a half better than when we were talking about this, I guess, at this time last week. And only 2 out in the loss column, and it just seemed like the Braves got better this week and the Phillies got worse. That was sort of the take that I took on this week. Do you disagree by any chance? I mean, could you see Bruce being the impact where the Phillies actually got better even without Kutch by any chance? Or yeah,
I don't. I share your sentiment with Kutch. I think he's fantastic, and he's probably the only likable guy on that whole squad. But
he's a more complete player than is Bruce. I'll say that he's more of a 5-tool guy. Let's face that. Bruce, and he hit home runs this past week and kept the Phillies in first place. Don't get us wrong. But yeah, they lost a more complete player in Kutch with the knee injury that will keep him out for the entire season.
And he was playing well, too. And a lot of people didn't think he was going to do it because of his age. He's kind of old-ish for a ball player, but he was having a great season. So it was a huge loss for the Phillies for sure, both on the field and inside the clubhouse. Because let's not forget, he's one of the best guys.
Yeah.
One of the best clubhouse guys in the game. So I agree with you. Huge loss for the Phillies and the Braves getting Keuchel. On the mound, he's going to be a huge improvement. But also in the clubhouse, he's been known to be a fantastic teammate, fantastic clubhouse guy, and I think those things matter. And so I totally agree with you. I think this has been a great week for the Braves and a bad week for the Phillies. And I would think that this has a long-term impact on both clubs. I think ways long term, and I think it hurts the Phillies long term.
Well, I gotta ask you about this. I mean, the Pirates series. Yeah, who is Colin Moran, and where did he come from? That sort of thing. I think these last 2 days, but I guess the big news or the off the field news was Steve Blass, who is a legendary Pittsburgh Pirates baseball figure whose career, by the way, started in Kingsport with the 1960 Kingsport Pirates, where that was his very first job, as a matter of fact. And he told me that was his first paycheck in Kingsport. Steve Blass bought a watermelon and a six-pack. You could do that at 18 and all this in Kingsport back in 1960. But I mentioned this because there was a lot of Twitter talk. There was a lot of controversy about, I guess Steve Blass didn't like Ron Acuna Jr.'s jewelry and said, a player like that wore as much jewelry when I was pitching, and by the way, his last year was 1974, you might throw at a guy like that. And that was called racist, that was called old fuddy-duddy and all this. I wondered, hey, I remember Willie Stargell wearing chains and Dave Parker with an earring, and they were both your teammates once upon a time. So I was a little bit curious about the conversation or the comment. But what were your take? I mean, you had Craig Calcaterra, calling him a racist and all this. What was your take at all on Steve Blass's comments on Ron Acuna Jr.'s jewelry?
Well, I think to call him a racist because of that is completely lazy and disingenuous. I do think that I thought it was silly because of the reasons you just laid out. The guy played with guys like Dave Parker, so why would a little bit of jewelry in 2019, bug him? For me, it was just an old fuddy-dud uptight guy, just having a complaint. And I think that we should live in a world where guys like that can have a complaint without calling them racist. He's an old school guy, and he had issue with a guy wearing a bunch of swag. I don't.
Yeah.
I grew up watching, Neon, and I kind of like it. And for me, it's like, who cares? But I mean, the old guy has issue with it. Who cares?
Well, let me just put it this way. Steve Blass used to always tell this story, and I can remember that when Roberto Clemente died, the first thing he did is he went to Willie Stargell's house, 126 Conover, Pittsburgh, PA, 15208. Hey, it was down the hill from where I lived when I was 8 years old. Now you understand why I host a sports talk show and such. Anyway, but then when Willie Stargell died, he said, I don't have anywhere to go. And I did find it curious because Stargell would wear a chain, Parker would wear an earring, Barry Bonds would certainly, he was known for having that cross earring when he played for the Pirates and all that. So I was a little curious. Really, this is, the lumber company, pal. But yeah, to start going out on I don't wear jewelry, but I don't say that Ronald Acuna can't. If that's it, if that makes him comfortable, go with it,
Right. What he said was, it's worth scoffing at, but to just blast the guy like in the way the Craig Calcaterras of the world have, it's stupid. It's 2019 for you.
I will tell you this, and I have talked baseball, the people that run are still very, a lot of managers can be very, very crusty. You play the game this way and all that. I've worked in baseball, Josh Brandt, Knockahoma Nation. I know this. And if you're sort of borderline on making the team and all that, something stupid like making your stirrup show can sometimes be the deciding factor. I'm dead serious about that, okay? As crazy as it may sound. And yeah, Blass is 77 years old, and Acuna is, 21 and all this. But yeah, I think maybe there is, I do think in the major leagues, you've probably worn the right to wear a chain out on the field if you like to. But then again, we do have to sort of respect, hey, that's traditional baseball and all this and such. Anyway, Josh Brown, what do you think of the Braves draft?
You know what, Marky, I'll be honest with you, this is the first time in a few years I haven't really followed that much.
Okay.
Baseball drafts are a little different for me than NFL drafts because there's a lot of players.
No, and most of them won't make the majors. I get that, and I mean, like, look at the Braves' 8th-round pick last year going to Japan and such. I mean, we get that. So, I do understand. Then again, I mean, I don't necessarily remember it because I was still a little boy and I wasn't watching baseball, but Bob Horner did once go from the draft to the major leagues straight up and hit a home run, I believe, in his first game.
That was crazy.
So, and all that. Now, I don't know. I know that you've covered the minors and such, but let me ask you this. What are your takes on the baseball draft? In other words, what are your thoughts on, for instance, having 40 rounds? Is that too many or so?
For me it is. As a baseball enthusiast, as someone who enjoys keeping up with the sport and all of these things, absolutely. The fact that it's multiple days long, I don't know the answer. I do like the guy they drafted first round as a catcher. I think that's cool because catchers are, they're so hard to find. I tell parents, teach your kids how to catch. If your kid's interested in baseball, you should totally sway them into catching because if you can catch and hit 230, then you've got a job one day in the major league because catchers are just, there's not many of them.
Especially if you hit 230 with some pop in your bat, then you'll be hitting fourth these days and all. By the way, did you know that there are actually 4 teams in the majors who are hitting less than 230 this year?
Wow, that's the end of the thing to do, Marky. It's hot.
Yeah.
To not hit for average.
Yeah. The Blue Jays are hitting 220 as a team. They have a DH.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I do say I'm looking at some of the people they've written about the baseball draft, and a lot of people seem to like the fact the Braves picked up Michael Harris. He's a right-handed pitcher from Stockbridge, Georgia. He can throw up to 93, which doesn't seem to me to be that sensational, but he has 3 pitches and all this. The only reason I mention him, I don't ask for you to talk about him personally, but he is a high school pitcher. And there is an old adage that, Steve Avery aside or whatever, you want to have your pitcher have some college seasoning before you sign him. Historically, certainly in the first round, pitchers who have some college seasoning fare much better than those that coming right out of high school. Do you have any feeling? I mean, you covered the Rome Braves for a while. Was there any feeling on why that might be?
Well, I think baseball is so mental, and especially pitching. And in my experience covering minor league ball, it seems that a lot of times your better pitchers are guys with some college experience. And I don't know if that's just a mental thing or not, but a lot of times you'll see these guys drafted right out of high school, especially pitchers, and they'll struggle because baseball is so mental, especially pitching, right? Mm-hmm. And so it'll be interesting. I like him, and it's funny. I think the Braves have this thing with either Texas Tech guys or Texas Tech commits. They love Texas Tech guys, and Michael Harris was a Texas Tech commit. He obviously isn't going to put the money in Rams, but there's a bunch of Red Raiders for whatever weird reason in the Braves farm system.
I knew a guy named, what was his, Cole, no, I can't remember his last name, all this, but anyway, who actually was on Texas Tech as a walk-on for a year. He was pitching for the Rio Grande Valley White Wings. Cole Stevens was his name and all that. But anyway, lives in Knoxville now. Anyway, well, I mentioned this because he did mention that was a very tough team to crack, was Texas Tech, and he wound up pitching D2 ball in Pueblo, Colorado, where if you had an ERA of less than 9, Josh Brown of Knockahoma Nation, you were considered to be doing something special. Can you imagine that? Yes. Anyway, there you are right there. But, no, looking at it, I think that we're both in agreement that the Braves got better with Keuchel. The Phillies without Kutch got worse and such. Now, there was one story I wanted to talk to you about away from the Braves, and it was the story about the minor league no-hitter that was broken up by a bunt. Let's see here. Matt Lipka breaking up a no-hitter. He plays for Trenton, I guess, in the Yankees system. It was a 3-0 game, 2 outs, combined no-hitter, by the way, and he wanted to bunt for a base hit. Now, what are your thoughts on that? I saw a poll of major leaguers that 16 out of 30 said that was against the code. 14 said, it's 3-0. You still got a chance to win. There was one guy who said it's 3-0. You don't have a chance to win with 2 outs in the ninth, which I thought to be kind of intriguing and all this. But what are your thoughts actually on trying to bunt in that situation to break up a no-hitter?
I'll be honest with you. I have no problem with it. It's dirty, but I understand the no written rules of baseball, but I've never had a huge issue with it. Matt Lipka is a former Braves farmhand, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, he played. He played in Mississippi for a while in 2016 as well as the Nets, and he played. He actually played. He played in Danville. I think he might have. No. Yes, he did. He played in Danville in 2010, and then Lynchburg. 2012. Yeah, former Braves farmhand Matt Lipka. There you go. But yeah, it's dirty when you try to pick up a no-hitter via bunt. It's dirty, but man, I've got no problem with it.
I'll just say this. I think, for one thing, combined no-hitter doesn't quite do it the way that if somebody who's throwing a complete game does. And I know that that's antiquated, but there's that 3-0. I can remember in the big leagues a guy bunting for a hit in a situation similar like that. I think to break up a perfect game, but it was a 2-0 game. And they said, look, guy's trying to play to win. Let me ask you this. What if the score was 12-0?
Right.
What if the score was 12-0?
Contextual. Yeah, maybe a combined no-hitter, who cares? If a combined no-hitter, you break it up with a bunt, whatever. And don't get your feelings hurt about it. But if it's a fantastic story of a guy coming from, cancer or something, and he's throwing a no-hitter or something, or he's a young guy and it's his first year or something, then maybe you don't. And if you do, then you get hit at the next game.
Well, Josh Brown, this is where I'm going to... There are two historical references, and this is where I was leading to here. The reason I say 12-0, I don't know if you're... you probably know this is going to be our second reference to the 78 Braves. But that team, that year, Pete Rose had a 44-game hitting streak, tied with Wee Willie Keeler, longest National League history. The team that stopped it, the Atlanta Braves, Larry McWilliams and Gene Garber, in a 16-4 victory in which Rose was the last out. And Garber has talked about this, that he's facing, and so this is the entire drama of the game, 44-game hitting streak on the line. Does he break Wee Willie Keeler? Does he go on to Joe DiMaggio? 16-4. And the first thing, with 2 outs in the ninth, down 16-4, that Rose tries to do against Garber is bunt for a hit. And it doesn't work. And Garber has always looked at that and said, really? And he got Rose out, and the streak stopped and all that. But I do kind of think that was, yeah, it's a hit. We would, if he was successful, it's a hit. We got to give it to him. But yeah, you are kind of like thinking, really? And 3-0, you still got a chance to win, even with 1 out in the ninth. I give you that. And again, combined, I don't know. Anyway, what's coming on Knockahoma Nation?
Well, I'm actually going to be taking a couple weeks off. So everyone stay tuned because Ken Hendricks is going to be flying solo. He's going to do some cool stories. And we're talking with a couple of big names for next month. Mark Bowman will be on next month. He's the insider for MLB.com. He'll be on. But yeah, your boy here, Josh Brown, will be taking just a couple weeks off. I hadn't done that ever since we started the podcast. You're
a new father. You've got to do something. Yeah.
New father. Yeah. I'm going to go on a couple trips. I think in a couple weekends I'm going to go out to Knoxville to go to some Smokies games.
Okay.
And then I think the 18th, Marky, I'll be at the Danville Braves game, so I'll have to report back to you
There you go, on the prospect, just like with the Rome Braves, as you once did. Okay, here's the story that'll blow your mind. This is you want a story for Ken Hendricks? I'm going to give you a story for Ken Hendricks. Okay, Pirates and Braves played yesterday, right? Bucks won. What was the final there? 6-1, I think, was the final yesterday. So they took 2 out of 3. 125 years to that date, the Pittsburgh Pirates defeated Boston, the Bean Eaters, now the Atlanta Braves, by the score of 27-11. That was the most runs to this day the Pirates have ever scored in a game. 125 years of the day. What do you think about that?
That's amazing. That's back in the day where when a guy's rounded second, you could just like grab a hold of his belt.
Yes.
Throw him down or something?
Yeah. There was one umpire, and if you tagged on John McGraw would do that. If you were tagging at third base on a sac fly, yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The good old days.
I'll even give you this. In that 27-11 game, there was a ball player, the third place hitter for what we now know as the Atlanta Braves, the Boston Bean Eaters of that time, a guy named Hugh Duffy. Do you know what Hugh Duffy and 1894, what that is in baseball history and lore, and Braves history for that matter? Hugh Duffy that year hit .438. That's the all-time record.
Wow.
With 18 home runs in the dead ball era. That was a lot of home runs in the dead ball era, and 145 RBIs. When people, they say, who had the best offensive season ever? They talk about, Barry Bonds in 2001, or let's say Babe Ruth in 1921 and all that. I always say Hugh Duffy, .438, 18 dead ball home runs, and 145 ribbies. The all-time batting average, right? You got to look at that and all that. Of course, 125 years of the day, he was 2 for 5. His average went down. Think about that.
Insane.
There you go.
I can't even fathom that.
That's your historical story of the day and all that. And so, yeah, I saw that on a this date in baseball history type of thing. But, yes, there you go. Okay, it's going to be Braves Marlins, I believe. And around here, the other team, the Reds are playing the Phillies. By the way, I'm going to tell you this. Look out for the Reds in the second half. Their .365 team ERA, 4th best in baseball. They could. They may be in last place, but they're not far out of it. That's a team that could make some noise. I'm telling you, second half of the year. I do think the Braves could make some noise because they've picked up Dallas Keuchel, and the Phillies have lost Andrew McCutchen, and I think it favors 2 games back with the Braves for the remaining 100 games of the season. He's Josh Brown, Knockahoma Nation. It'll have Ken Hendricks on for a couple of weeks. We'll continue to talk to Josh Brown, and I'm coming back after this. I don't know if that blew your mind.